Hello, fellow Americans, and welcome back to the All of Us podcast. I'm your host, Nathaniel Tavares, and I want to begin today with one specific question. When you picture bullying, who do you see? You probably picture two people, the student doing the bullying and the student being bullied. But what if one of the most important people in that situation is actually neither one of them? What if it's the person watching? The student standing nearby, the friend who sees the message in the group chat, the person who hears the joke, the student who watches someone get humiliated in the cafeteria, the person who knows what's happening is wrong, but doesn't quite know what to do about it. Keep that person in mind, because today, for the first time on this podcast, we're taking our conversation outside of the United States. Not because America doesn't have good ideas, not because another country has everything figured out, and certainly not because we should blindly copy what somebody else is doing. We're doing it because if our mission is truly to build the safest and best places for kids to become everything they dream of becoming, then we should be willing to learn from good ideas wherever they exist. And that brings us to a new recurring mini-series here on the All of Us podcast, Beyond Our Borders. From time to time, we're going to look at what other countries are doing around issues like school safety, student well-being, bullying, mental wellness, violence prevention, belonging, substance abuse, education, and community resilience. But I want to establish the rules for the series from the beginning. This is not going to be, look how much better this country is than America. And it's definitely not going to be, they tried this, so we should copy it. Instead, we're going to ask the questions of, what are they doing? What does the evidence actually say? Why might it be working? What are the limitations? And then, what, if anything, can we learn from it here at home? And because I want these conversations grounded in evidence, not just my opinion, you'll be able to find the research and credible sources used for each Beyond Our Borders conversation linked in each episode description. So, for our first stop, we are heading to Finland. And we're talking about bullying. Now, why Finland? Finland is home to an anti-bullying program called KiVa. KiVa was developed at the University of Turku with funding from Finland's Ministry of Education and Culture, and it was built from research examining bullying and peer relationships. Its approach centers around three major components, which are prevention, intervention, and monitoring. And this wasn't simply a campaign somebody just created and declared successful. One major randomized evaluation involved more than 8,200 Finnish students in grades 4 through 6, giving researchers an opportunity to actually study the program at scale. Now, before we go any further, Finland has not solved bullying. Bullying still happens, students still struggle. Finnish education authorities themselves continue working to address bullying, discrimination, violence, exclusion, and student safety. And that's important for us to say, because Beyond Our Borders isn't about finding utopia, it's about finding lessons. And one of the lessons behind KiVa caught my attention immediately. Remember the student I asked you about there at the beginning? The one watching? KiVa takes that student seriously. See, bullying isn't always just between two people. Think about a typical bullying situation. Someone makes a comment, someone becomes the target, but surrounding them may be an entire social environment. Someone laughs, someone encourages it, someone records it, someone reports it, someone repeats the joke later, someone walks away, someone privately thinks this is messed up, but says absolutely nothing, and maybe somebody wants to intervene, but is afraid they'll become the next target. Research underlying approaches like KiVa specifically has examined how these different peer reactions can influence bullying. Students surrounding a situation can reinforce the behavior, or they can help take away some of the social reward that allows it to continue. And that changes the question. Instead of only asking, how do we stop students from bullying? We can also ask, how do we teach everybody else what to do when they see it? Because most kids already know they're not supposed to bully somebody. Don't bully isn't exactly groundbreaking information to them. But what happens when your friend is doing it? What happens when everybody else is laughing? What happens when the target isn't your friend? What happens when speaking up could cost you your social status? What happens online when participating requires nothing more than tapping the share button? These are much harder questions, and those are the questions worth teaching students how to answer. Another part of Kiva that I find truly valuable is that the work doesn't begin only after somebody reports bullying. The program includes preventative activities intended for students more broadly, along with specific intervention approaches while bullying is identified and monitoring designed to help schools truly understand what is happening over time. Think about those three words again: prevention, intervention, monitoring. Prepare before the problem. Respond when the problem occurs. Then determine whether what you're doing is actually working. That sounds incredibly simple. But think about how often organizations, not just schools, do the complete opposite. Something terrible happens. Everybody becomes concerned. We hold a meeting. Maybe there's an assembly. Maybe posters appear. Maybe everybody talks about the issue for a week. Then life moves on. Until it happens again. That's reaction. It isn't necessarily prevention. Real prevention has to become part of the culture. Students should learn how to handle conflict before the conflict becomes destructive, how to recognize humiliation, how to respond when somebody is being targeted, how to get an adult involved, how to support someone afterward, how to recognize when something that started as a joke isn't funny anymore, and how to understand that refusing to participate can itself be an act of courage. See, every adult has a role. There's another piece of Finland's approach that connects directly to the last two episodes of this podcast. The Finland National Agency for Education describes student welfare as a joint effort among school staff and emphasizes prevention, interaction, community belonging, and safety. It also specifically says adults should help ensure students find their place in the community and that schools should intervene when bullying, violence, discrimination, or racism occur. Think back to episode 6, the most important adult in a student's life. Then episode 7, what actually makes a school feel safe? We talked about 4 areas of safety: physical, emotional, relational, and preventative. Now look at bullying through that framework. Bullying isn't only a discipline issue. It can affect emotional safety, it can destroy relational safety, and when suffering goes unnoticed or unanswered, it can become a preventative safety concern. The student being humiliated every day shouldn't have to reach a breaking point before the adults around them decide the problem is serious. The student becoming isolated shouldn't have to completely shut down before somebody asks what's going on. And the student who finally works up the courage to tell an adult shouldn't have to tell five more adults before somebody actually listens. Pain matters before it becomes a crisis. And see, America is in fact doing this work too. Right here is where I want us to stop for a moment. Because looking beyond our borders does not mean overlooking the work happening right here at home. America isn't starting from zero. American researchers, universities, educators, counselors, and schools have also spent years studying bullying prevention, and some of that research points toward remarkably similar ideas. One example is a program called STAC, associated with researchers at Boise State University. STAC teaches students who witness bullying how to act as defenders. And instead of simply saying, speak up, it gives students practical strategies. Those strategies include using distraction or humor to interpret a situation, getting an adult involved, supporting the student who was targeted, and when appropriate and safe, responding in a way intended to encourage empathy from the student doing the bullying. In other words, teach the bystander what to do. And American researchers are continuing to develop this work. A 2025 study examined a technology-based version called STAC-T, with middle school students recruited from 6 different schools in rural, lower-income communities across various regions of the United States. Among these students in the intervention group who completed follow-up and said they had witnessed bullying after the training, 88.8% reported using at least one of the STAC strategies to intervene. And I want to be very precise here. That does not mean STAC-T reduced bullying by 88.8%. That's not what the study found. It means that among those participating students who reported witnessing bullying after training, nearly 9 out of 10 said they used at least one of the intervention strategies they had learned. That's an important distinction. Good research deserves accurate representation, and STAC isn't our only example. Researchers have tested other school-based approaches here in the United States, including the Positive Action Program in Chicago public schools through randomized research. And when the U.S. Community Preventative Services Task Force examined a broader body of evidence, its review drew on 69 randomized studies, including 17 conducted in the United States and 2 in Canada. See, the task force recommends school-based anti-bullying interventions with the evidence showing reductions in reported bullying perpetration and victimization, and improvements in measures of mental health such as anxiety, depression, and well-being. So this isn't Finland has the answers and America doesn't. Not even close. To me, it's actually much more interesting than that. Researchers in Finland examine peer group dynamics. American researchers examine bystander intervention. Schools in different places test different approaches, and sometimes different roads begin pointing towards similar principles. Peers matter. Relationships matter. Culture matters. Prevention matters. Teaching people what to do matters. And measuring whether what we're doing actually works matters. That's what I want Beyond Our Borders to be about. Not America versus the world, but America learning with the world. So, what should we take from all of this? I see four lessons. Number one, bullying is bigger than the two students directly involved. Individual accountability matters, absolutely, but so does the environment around the behavior. What gets laughs? What gets attention? What gets shared? What gets ignored? And what happens socially when somebody chooses to stand up for someone else? Culture can either feed harmful behavior or make it harder for that behavior to thrive. Number two, students can be a part of prevention. Young people are not simply people adults need to protect. Students themselves can help build safer schools. Now, that does not mean asking children to physically confront dangerous situations. It doesn't mean putting adult responsibilities onto kids. It means equipping them. Don't join the humiliation. Don't repost it. Don't encourage it. Support the person being targeted. Get a trusted adult. Report legitimate concerns. Sometimes courage is loud. Sometimes courage looks like walking across the cafeteria and sitting beside the kid everybody else left alone. Number three, prevention should happen before the incident. Teach healthy relationships before relationships become toxic. Teach appropriate reporting before students need to report something. Teach what bullying actually looks like before someone dismisses repeated cruelty as, oh, they're just joking. Teach students what responsible intervention looks like before they're standing in the hallway trying to decide what to do. And number four, measure the outcome, not just the activity. Having a program does not automatically mean you have solved a problem. Giving a presentation doesn't automatically mean culture has changed. Putting posters on a wall doesn't tell us whether students truly feel safer. Ask them, do you feel safe? Do you know whom to tell? Do you believe adults will listen? Do you know how to respond when somebody else is being bullied? Where is this happening? Is it getting any better? See, success shouldn't simply mean we did the program. Success should mean students are experiencing a better school environment. So, should every American school run out tomorrow and copy Finland? No, that's not the lesson here. Finland and the United States are very different in their own ways. Our communities are different. Our school systems are different. And America itself is incredibly diverse. What works beautifully in one community may need significant adaptation somewhere else. The point isn't to make American schools Finland schools. The point is to be humble enough to ask, what have they learned that may help us think differently? And then apply the same standard to our own ideas. Test them, study them, adapt them, challenge them, and improve them. Keep what works, change what doesn't. Because good ideas don't belong to one country, and neither does the responsibility to protect children. Today, our first stop was Finland. Next time, it could be Japan, Norway, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, the United Kingdom, or somewhere none of us have ever expected. Sometimes we're going to find an idea another country does exceptionally well. Sometimes we're going to discover serious limitations, and sometimes we may discover that the United States is already leading in an area and has lessons worth sharing with the rest of the world. That is the point. Beyond our borders isn't about deciding who is better. It's about being curious enough to learn. Because if somebody, somewhere, has discovered something that could help one more student, feels safe. One more student feels seen. One more student finds support, or one more student choose hope. I want us to know about it. And then I want us to ask, what can we do with what we've learned? So I want to bring you back to the question we started with. When someone is being bullied, what role do the rest of us play? The spectators, the student watching, the friend who knows, the teacher who notices the behavior change, the parent whose child mentions something at dinner, the coach, the counselor, the principal, the community. Because maybe one of the most valuable lessons we can take from today's conversation isn't a Finland program, or an American program, or any program at all. Maybe it's this. Bullying may target one person, but preventing it takes all of us. So let's keep learning from each other, across classrooms, across communities, across states, and yes, across borders. And I want to hear from you. What can we learn from one another across schools, communities, states, and even countries to continue building the safest and best places for every child to become everything they dream of becoming? And if you know of a country, program, policy, study, or idea from somewhere around the world that you believe belongs in a future beyond our borders episode, bring it into the conversation. And remember, the research and credible sources behind today's conversation are linked in the episode description. So don't just take my word for it. Explore them, question them, learn from them, and bring your own perspective back to this conversation. Because building safer schools, stronger communities, and brighter futures will never be the responsibility of one person. It belongs to all of us. Thank you for joining me for episode 8 of the All of Us podcast. Until next time, keep believing in people, keep building hope, keep looking for solutions wherever they may be found. And remember, we don't have to agree on everything to learn something from everyone. I'll see you next time.